What is up, everyone, and welcome to Drop In, where we have open, authentic conversations about all things mental health, including the communication mistakes that mess us up.
Wow.
I can't relate to this topic at all, but maybe I'll learn something. Dr. Jackie, how are you?
Surviving, not thriving. We'll see. I literally just stuffed my face with pizza because my blood sugar crashed because I forgot to eat. So TBD on if my brain will turn on halfway through this.
The forgetting to eat, do you attribute that to ambition, ADHD?
I would like to think that it's a little bit of both, but I think it's probably more the ADHD than anything else. Of one, poor planning, like doing something. Like I was literally in the middle of grocery shopping, and halfway through, I like felt myself crash, and I was like, ruh-roh, and not having enough time before doing things, or having a neuron that fires and is like, oh, I need to go and do this thing. So there's that.
They say don't go grocery shopping on an empty stomach. I don't know when it's to the degree that you can barely see what you're putting in your cart.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that I spend more money when I'm hungry.
Oh, yeah, you do. Everything looks good when you're hungry.
Which is an issue today.
You devouring that slice of pizza at record pace to get
For
this
me
recording
especially.
in.
I know. So hopefully my brain is online enough
to talk about communication, something we all need, impacts all of us. We both made lists. Lists of the communication mistakes maybe we make, we see. Would you like to go first or second?
First, I would like to ask you.
Oh, God. Bead of sweat coming down.
Who do you think is a better communicator out of the two of us?
That it's not close. It's not close. I don't know what our listeners would guess, but I know we're going to agree on this.
Yeah.
I'm certain of it. I am a better communicator.
Yes. I won't fight you on that.
I think the only area in our dynamic is like I will get excitable, and you, I think, are a better natural listener. But when it comes to actually communicating what's sitting with us and sort of get to the core of it and hold that out there, yeah, I think we're getting to a strength and a deficit. But again, where I'm giving you credit is I think you're naturally can hold space, where in our dynamic between the two of us, I get so excited sometimes that it's harder for me to ground myself to like be in like hold space listener mode. If we're just talking the two of us.
Yeah, I'll take that.
I think you're a great listener.
I think you are too, though.
I wouldn't say I'm bad. I hope I'm not bad. People out there are like, that's my therapist. But I think in our dynamic, yours is a particular strength.
I appreciate that. Considering my communication is definitely a deficit. I think especially like in like romantic relationships is what I have noticed. That is like for sure where I notice my communication being the worst across different settings.
Right. Well, I feel like that's the dynamic we're pulling from here.
Right. But I would say I'm probably a better communicator in different settings or dynamics.
And I think that's the interesting thing of like when you talk communication, the assumption is if somebody communicates this way in their romantic relationship or this way at work or this way in the friendship, it's going to be the same everywhere. And that's not always the case.
Right.
We assume different dynamics with different people. And there's sort of like a different expectation in a lot of places of like work compared to romantic.
Totally.
Expectations are different.
Yes.
Romantic and friendship, I think, have much more overlap of being authentic, vulnerable, getting to the core.
I would agree. And I think that's probably the challenge for me is exactly what you just said, the vulnerability piece. Because communication can feel very vulnerable.
Well, in a lot of ways, it should. Meaning, and we'll get into that. We don't
Yeah.
want to drop too many shoulds. The first thing I have on my list does have a should on it, though.
Oh, all right. You go first.
Assuming the other person knows or should know. And I worded this broadly because I think it refers to so many things.
I have a feeling that your list is going to literally be my exact list.
Oh, well, great. Then we have agreements, which is nice. But assuming the other person knows or should know. When you hear that, what do you think of?
Mind reading.
Yeah, the mind reading.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of times, especially within romantic relationships, we assume that our partner knows what it is that we're needing in any given moment. And we assume that they know that and therefore are choosing not to do that thing a lot of times or say the right thing or say whatever. And I think that kind of sets our partner and ourselves up for failure a lot of times.
So many times. Yeah, and it's the nuance of the moment. And we see that, again, as therapists, we see this come out in so many ways of like, oh, he didn't plan anything for my birthday this year. And it's like, there's always that credibility of, wouldn't it be nice if they just did it? And that's where I always come alongside in any sort of these communication situations of like, I agree with you. It'd be nice if your best friend just knew that on your birthday you like to go out. It'd be great. It'd be great if your partner just knew that you always like to take a trip.
Sure.
However, I think in adult relationships, we need to communicate what it is we're wanting.
Right. And I think that also sets you up for the future, right? Of like, on my birthday, I like to feel special in these ways. Okay. Once you've communicated that, then maybe in future years, your partner might know that, or your friends might know that, or family or whoever might kind of know that because you did communicate that. But that's where communication, I think, a lot of times is a two-way street, right? Of being able to say what it is that you're needing and communicate that to your partner and have a discussion about it, as opposed to just kind of making that assumption that people know exactly what it is that I'm wanting.
Right. And this is more of a thought question than whatever. Is communicating it once enough?
I don't think it's realistic to communicate it once and have the expectation that that person is going to automatically remember or be able to put certain things in practice. And I think this comes up a lot of times with boundaries, right? Like when we're setting boundaries with someone, and that's not to say that we're cutting that person off necessarily, but if you're saying, I appreciate it when you call before you show up at the house, and that person is so used to doing that they come over, they do whatever. And sometimes we need to reiterate that to them if and when they do that behavior that we're trying to set a boundary with. And so this is something that I see very often, especially with clients trying to set those boundaries, which is hard. And assuming that saying it one time means that it will be implemented from here on out perfectly 100% of the time. And I don't necessarily know if that's realistic.
I agree. And it goes back to what I say all the time. It would be nice. Like that's often, I find myself, when we try to see the world through our client's lens, like I agree it would be nice.
Right.
And when I zoom out and think of human behavior as a whole, one time I'm skeptical. Again, it'd be great. I tell you something one time, you forever do that thing or sort of hold me in mind. Do I think that's the psychology of most people who are consumed by their own thoughts, feelings, emotions, distraction? No, I don't.
Right.
And yet we hear that often in therapy. Well, I told them last year. And I'm like, I hear you. I do hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it gets into like, there's not a right answer of like, yeah, and how many years do you have to remind someone of something?
Right.
And how many times? And as therapists and psychologists, we don't have that number,
Mm-hmm.
but we would like it when it's more than one. Like, it's great if you've done it at least maybe 2+.
Yeah, which is interesting because then you get to almost the other side of it too, of how many times do I have to say something before someone either hears me or implements that thing that I'm asking for, before it feels like I'm just talking to a wall and not getting through. So I think there is kind of this happy medium between not expecting someone to hear you 100% accurate the first time that you say something, and also not saying the same thing 700 times to no avail.
Absolutely true. Yeah, it's absolutely true. But the moral of the story is whatever is going on in your mind, you cannot assume
Mm-hmm.
your bestie, your partner, your coworker, whoever knows
Right.
that that's important.
I think another layer, even of assumptions, is the assumption that that means something, right? So, for example, if I ask you to do something and you don't do that thing, I think there's another layer of assumption that that means that you don't care about me.
The interpretation.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and you see that all the time of like, and I think our brain will do this.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put an interpretation on it, and a lot of times in therapy, we'll be like, "Are there other interpretations that are plausible?"
Right. Are there any other options of what this might mean or reasons as to why that might have happened?
Exactly, because a lot of times it would be like, "Well, they just don't care about me then at
Mm-hmm.
all," and it's like, well, have you ever forgotten?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's like when we put the shoe on the other foot, sometimes we can start to generate like, oh yeah, I have. And I think a lot of times we want people to give us the grace when
Mm-hmm.
it's about them, but do we offer that same grace to other people?
Right.
Instead of saying they're obviously a bad friend
Mm-hmm.
and don't care about me and prefer these other people over me.
Right. And a lot of times, too, we can put our own narrative into play in those situations, right? With the interpretation and the meaning that we make out of that, where we might assume, again, that that person doesn't care about you, or that, I've been burned in relationships before, so this must be the same type of situation. And so I think that is where that kind of like dangerous game that we play naturally as humans kind of comes into play a lot of times. And then we can overreact, underreact, have different reactions based off of that meaning and interpretation that we end up making that might not be the most accurate in terms of our reactions.
So bringing our history into it.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And I think reflecting and being able to take the pause of, is this related? Is this a familiar feeling for me?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a familiar sort of consequence that I'm sort of stamping on this of like, I can't trust anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when people kind of default to these like really like broad statements, it's like, okay, this might be a trend that as soon as we feel injured or hurt, that we're pulling out the stamp that we have pre-made of like, can't trust anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to invalidate the history we have, but then, as you're saying, we can cut off and be reactive to things at any sign that we might be getting hurt or not quite what we want.
Right.
What's on your list?
One of the top ones that I thought of is not communicating at all. Shutting down, not saying the things that you're thinking or feeling.
A pure shutdown.
Yes.
Just pure avoidant.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying a word. You've been hurt in this scenario and you say nothing, or you just feel something, you're like, I'm just not going to share that.
Right. And I think a lot of times people will often based on their history, invalidate their own experiences or think that it's not important enough to share or communicate, and don't always feel justified in the emotions or reactions that they're having. So they tend to then shut it down or not communicate that, or not think that it's important enough to communicate.
Right. And that it becomes hard because in some ways, it's obviously protective of like people will report of like, well, if I don't share this, I can't be hurt more. And it's protective. It also gives you the control. But the thing I try to hold and look at is if this dynamic isn't working for you, is that action leading towards growth or does it keep it the same?
Right. And I think this is actually, like, full disclosure, I think this is one of the things that I had struggled with the most, that I have, I think, shifted within our relationship, is I am one of those people who tends to just shut it down and not talk about it, kind of ignore things, and then they'll build up and I'll volcano out at a certain point over something that's probably seemingly very minuscule. But a lot of times that for me was a space that it felt too vulnerable to talk about the reactions that I was having, for fear that I would be seen as crazy or overreactive or not justified in how I was feeling.
Well, those messages come from somewhere. Then a lot of people will self-reflect and like, look into their own families or previous dating histories and be like, that's what I was told.
Right.
That when I tried to share, that's literally what I was told. So what's the point?
Right. Like, my
sharing?
feelings didn't matter. So why would they matter now in a different type of relationship?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You've definitely grown a lot in that area.
I think part of that, honestly, is doing something different, right? And like having a new experience and being with someone who feels safe. That's another huge aspect. Because when you're with someone who feels safe enough to share that with, and who doesn't judge you or put you down for having whatever feelings or reactions that you have, it makes you have this different experience of, oh, okay, this is actually helpful to communicate and it's safe to communicate and I can trust you enough to communicate that.
Yeah. The conundrum there is like, we'll never know until we know.
Right.
And that's the thing that sucks about it. I agree. That where I try to like lead clients to is if you pull back and say nothing, I agree this is protective. And again, you'll kind of know the outcome because you'll try to ignore this. Maybe you'll move on from it. Maybe you won't, but it's in your hands. But if you ask yourself, what kind of relationship do you want to have? Again, it doesn't matter, friendship, coworker, romantic or otherwise. If it's not it, then it's like we're the ones sort of dictating that this is not the relationship.
Right.
Versus when you find out, like often like I'll try to get my clients to put on this like protective shield of like a scientist of like, you're just experimenting. Of like, you'll put something out there, some feedback, vulnerability, something that impact you. And if it comes back poorly, you found out.
Right.
You don't have to keep pouring into it. And it's not to minimize, you might feel something within that. But if you say, I'm allowed to find out, it almost gives you this permission versus like punishing yourself.
Right.
When you're like, that's not what happened. I don't know why you'd feel that way. Don't feel that way. All these things people get told, they get it stuffed back in their face.
Right. And again, that frame of experimenting and testing things out, I think is so helpful because, again, you're right. Like, there's not that self-blame piece as much. And it's more of like, okay, well, I'm going to test and see if this is a trustworthy person or a safe person to be able to have these conversations with or share my authentic truth with. And I feel like a lot of these things that we're probably going to talk about probably in either extreme can be the kind of mistakes, if you
Mhm.
will, right? Because then I think about the flip side of that, of someone who might share really vulnerable information with someone who either isn't safe or trustworthy, or is in a certain, let's say, even a professional dynamic. So, for example, sharing your diagnosis with someone at work or a supervisor or someone that doesn't feel like they're necessarily a safe environment to share that with, or sharing, very personal information with someone that it might not be the most appropriate. A lot of times you're going to get either negative feedback or you're going to get a reaction that might not be the best that you're looking for in that dynamic. And I think that can also be challenging and negatively kind of reinforcing in that way too.
It's interesting because I see how if we both had client A in front of us, we would come at this from very different angles. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just feel so oppositely of what you just said. Cause, and
In what way?
I think what you just said is more read the corporate room
Mm,
in some ways,
sure.
where I'm like, if you disclose to your middle manager, hey, I have anxiety and this is really impacting me, and they use that against you, like F that.
Sure.
In my mind, I'm like, I think we move too far towards stigma where you already have to preface and you're not allowed to test it a single time. To me, that is like, again, I'm not saying you're saying
Right.
this, but I'm like, that's too far of like, don't be a human here in corporate America and
Mm-hmm.
just know that this is the workplace. So don't tell me about your anxiety. Like, F that.
I agree with that.
And I know you're not going to that degree,
Right.
but I guess my whole premise is based on you can't know
Right.
until you test the waters.
Yeah, I guess it's to the degree that which you share something is more of what I'm thinking.
Mm.
So again, like if you meet someone and within the first 5 seconds you spill every detail of every aspect of something to someone that you're not really sure is safe or trustworthy, I think that's where the only like concern that I have would be.
I agree with you in that it's so nuanced
Right.
because someone can tell us like something that you're able to hold.
Mm-hmm.
And this is getting to another point on my list. And then we've all had that experience where someone puts something on you that feels heavy and then it feels heavy again. And it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's so nuanced because it's like
Right.
it's even hard to
Everything.
name the examples, but I think people intuitively know when it's like, oh, we don't have any relationship at all here,
Mm-hmm.
and you're handing me something very, very heavy,
Right.
and that's kind of tough.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that's where it's like, yeah, everyone's allowed to experiment, dip their toe in, and I think it is on us to a degree to be sort of mindful of like what I'm sharing and handing off to you.
Right. Agreed.
But too much of that, then it becomes too stigmatized, and like anything you say about mental health is like not allowed. So
Right. No, and definitely not wanting to promote that by any means. What was that next thing that you were thinking of?
it wasn't next, but it's sort of related. It's about things being not digestible.
Mm,
And this comes in many, many forms, but it's sort of one of the forms it comes in is like we go in to burn it all down.
mm,
It's like something's happened, some sort of misunderstanding, your wants, needs weren't met, and you're upset. And it's like instead of trying to get on the same page, what you communicate back just burns it down.
mm-hmm.
It's something I try to self reflect a lot on as a therapist, as a partner,
Yeah.
as a father.
Mm-hmm.
It's the question I ask myself is this digestible in the tone, the amount,
Right.
the intensity
Mm-hmm.
that I'm about to give this to someone? If it were coming at me the same way, would I be able to hold this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a lot of people, because of things we're talking about like trauma and past history, that's a really hard pause to take and be like, how can I communicate this where I am authentic, I am vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a chance that someone can digest this enough to do something different?
Right. And it's interesting too, because it makes me think a lot about ways that we communicate, again, in different settings, and being able to sometimes take a step back first in order to regulate and kind of collect your thoughts so that you can communicate them in a way that is most effective without walking on eggshells, right? Like, we never want to promote anyone like walking on eggshells or trying to communicate in this exact perfect way, because that's not realistic. That's
No.
not a human thing. We're never going to communicate everything quote unquote perfectly. I don't think that that exists. But I think a lot of times it can be so helpful to be able to just take a moment to regulate, or to at least process through and be able to explain yourself in a way that feels authentic, but also, like you said, digestible.
All these things are connected. Am I allowed to go to the next one, or do you want to go? All right,
Yeah.
steamrolling this now. Need to improve my communication. But to me, it fits right into the difference between you and I statements.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the audience is eye rolling. What the hell's with these I statements? But if I just came to you and I was like, you're never putting energy into me.
Mm-hmm.
You are always doing your own thing. You don't care about me.
Mm-hmm.
You aren't around a lot. And when I do see you, you're so distracted
Mm-hmm.
that it just, I almost said an I statement. It's actually harder for me to communicate like this now, because I'm just like, as I'm saying it, I'm like, oh, this is so bad. But and again, it's not like I've never done this. Of course I've done this.
Sure.
But in everything I just said to you,
Mm-hmm.
is it digestible? And are you learning about me?
Right. It feels very much of attack, putting the blame on the other person, and then it's very likely that that person is going to get defensive, right? And one of the things, even in that example that you just named, is one of the other pieces kind of to that as well, of the always never.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
The absolutes.
And the absolutes. So those tend to go hand in hand, right? Of like, you always or never
yeah.
do blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I think it just puts people on the defense, as opposed to being able to communicate effectively and have a discussion about something, as opposed to winning versus losing.
If I just go back
Mm-hmm.
and I go, I'm feeling really disconnected from you.
Mm-hmm.
I often will come into the room and I see you're on your laptop and phone, and it feels for me like I'm not even there. Even when I try to talk to you, I often feel like you don't really engage or ask follow up, and I end up feeling like, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we even like together doing life anymore?
Two very different feelings.
Yeah, and you're still allowed to name. Sometimes people are like, oh, I can't name the action. You can name the action. But
Sure.
if you don't get to the core of what it is you're feeling, how can someone else hold that?
Right.
Because if you come to me and you say, I'm feeling disconnected from you, again, in a healthy relationship,
Mm-hmm.
key point, you gotta label that. In a healthy relationship, I should be able to say, I'm concerned about that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want you to feel like we're disconnected.
Right. And I think phrasing it in that way, by using those I statements, it allows for more open, clarifying questions, right? Of like, okay, you're feeling disconnected. What is it that's making you feel disconnected? What are some of the things that, are leading to this? Is there, are there things that I'm doing, or are there things that I could be doing differently? And I think it just has a very different feeling, right? Of like, I'm not on the defense now. I am on the, like, let's communicate together and have it be us against this issue or challenge as opposed to me versus you.
I totally agree, and I love that of like being on the same team. And it also gives someone space to then share. Like again, not to play every role, but like I could hear the other person be like, I'm feeling overwhelmed lately. I feel like I just have so much work on my plate. There's not enough hours in the day. And I'm just like at night, I'm still working and I just barely have enough energy for me anymore. And I don't want it to be this way.
Yeah.
Because I think in there, it's like, it is, you know, that two-way street. Before I go to too many, what else is on your list?
Listening to respond rather than understand.
Yeah. I think this is where it's like, men, we have such a long way to go on this.
In general.
In general.
I would agree.
Yeah. It's just, it's not emphasized like in the toxic masculinity sort of culture. It's like your opinion, whatever it is, or experience is just, you got to be so steadfast and grounded in that. To be flexible and impressionable is, you know, sometimes a sign of weakness.
Sure. Which hopefully, you know, if we can look at that from a different lens and kind of pull some of that ingrained culture out of it, being able to effectively hear what it is that someone is communicating with you as opposed to just responding, there's such a different outcome. And I think that's the biggest piece, right? When someone gets defensive, man, woman, whatever gender, right? If someone is getting defensive, they tend to automatically jump on the first thing that they hear. And they're trying to win the argument as opposed to actually hearing what it is that their partner, their friend, their family member, their coworker, whoever is trying to communicate. And that often leads to more of this conflict as opposed to diffusing the actual situation.
Without question. Yeah, it's so interesting as you were saying that. It made me think of a couples therapy training I went to like years ago where one of the interventions was always, I'm using an absolute, they were like adamant, always have and train the other partner to take the lens of, you know, the partner that just spoke and have them repeat back what it is they're feeling, sensing, and what they just heard. Of like, not through you, but you're them now.
Yeah.
To guarantee they heard and absorbed it. And it was so interesting because like they're setting up this intervention. I'm like, yeah, it sounds nice in theory, like, you know, whatever. And then like they played a ton of video examples and it was so interesting to watch people struggle with it.
Yeah.
Of like, meaning like you just give me feedback and I just am not even trying to be you.
Right.
I'd be like, you're mad at me because I'm just like not paying attention. You always tell me this. It's just like, stop, go back.
Yeah.
Be Jackie. What is it, Jackie? Just to even say, I'm feeling sad and disconnected. Like you would see people struggle so hard.
Yeah.
But it's like,
I believe that.
It's to your point of like, are you truly absorbing what it is they're saying? Or are you already, you know, firing back from your own lens?
Right. Like, are you already looking for the rebuttal to what it is that they're saying? Right. So one of the things that I talk a lot about with clients is something that we do, right? Active listening and being able to validate how someone is feeling before moving on to the way that you're feeling or a solution or some other, you know, part of the discussion. Because if someone feels like you actually heard them, And you might not agree with what it is that they're saying, but you can reflect back to them what you're hearing them say. It tends to automatically disarm someone.
Without question. Like, without question. It's so funny because if you think about all the things that you'd sort of hand couples and you'd be like, if you could do this one thing, it'd make a big impact. I don't know anything that I'd put above what you just said. Of if you truly slowed down in the moments that were important and you really repeated back, and again, with compassion and empathy, what it is you're hearing. Yeah, I think it's especially again on the man side. It's not to say women don't feel this way sometimes too. You just get such into problem solving mode.
Yeah.
It's like that is often not what people are looking for at all.
Right.
And we know that through Gottman's research that most conflicts, there's not a clear resolution.
Right. And it makes me think about, being able to even sometimes ask that question of, are you wanting support or are you wanting a solution?
Had it on the list.
No way.
Yeah. I had it on the list of communicating what it is you're looking for.
Yes.
And I know people don't do this. Like, as certain as I can be, this is where we're getting real into therapist magic land. But what makes you think this is important?
Because oftentimes our partner, friend, family member, coworker, whoever, does not know what it is that we're looking for in that conversation, right? Unless you communicate it with them. And so oftentimes people will assume that you're looking for a solution, a vent sesh, whatever, right? And generally speaking, again, this is like research that says men tend to be focused on solutions and women tend to be focused on more of like the emotional side and the validation side, right? And that's a general overarching. It's not obviously applicable to everyone, because I would say in a lot of ways, our communication is probably the complete opposite of gender norms. So obviously this is not applicable to every single person. But what I'm saying is it can be so important to understand what it is that someone is needing out of that conversation and communication so that you are able to actually provide that to them and again disarm the conversation and get to a possible solution.
I love it. It's so important. And it's related but kind of different. And I've helped people with this in the work setting is articulate what you hope the outcome will be.
Yes.
I think that is so underrated and underutilized. And like an example that would be is like, I want us to have, and I'm doing work setting, I want us to have a meeting so we can get on the same page about this because it feels like we're working in different directions. And I know we can solve this together because we're both really smart. And I want us to be a powerful team and win more jobs. I better not say more because I'll start saying what field I'm imagining myself in. But people undersell that all the time. See it all the way through and hand that to them. There's a psychological effect that goes on when I hand you of like, we're both intelligent. We can come together and hear each other better than we are. So we can kick this thing's ass together.
Yes.
Maybe you can't say that in your corporate world, but I think people, when you leave room for assumption, you leave a lot of room for interpretation.
Yes.
And maybe you're not 100% that it's going to go the way you said, but bring that energy into the room of like, hey, I'm recognizing we're both smart here and we can come together on this and do a great job.
Right. And I think, again, it disarms the conflict a lot of times when you're going into a conversation and you're actually naming the outcome that you're looking for of, I want us to be on the same page, or I'm hoping that we can get to this common ground here and work together cohesively so that it's best for both of us.
Totally. And it's interesting, even in scenarios where somebody has to, somebody is in like a power over, you're a manager, whatever, and you have to give someone, negative feedback or corrective feedback. I I coach them in the same direction of, I love it when people say of like, we're going to go over some things today that, again, I know you can correct and do better at. And I know after we have this conversation, it won't be an issue going forward. I just think it dictates you believe in them. I
Right.
believe you can handle this. It won't be an issue anymore. And it is my job to sort of provide this feedback. But yeah, I want to have this conversation because I know you'll be able to fix this no problem.
Yes, I think there is a very different feeling of framing it in this optimistic, supportive kind of way as opposed to a punitive way.
Punitive. Oh, you're getting all the FU stares in that
Right.
meeting. And you've got to practice what you preach and back this up. Like if you just use these words and your energy is punitive,
Right.
every other time, don't do it. But in my mindset of like, there's a lot of good, well-meaning people who are in positions of power and managing and that where they want to set people up for success. And that's where I'm like, yeah, then coach them towards success.
Right.
Exactly like you're saying, don't come in there and have the whole tone be punitive and wonder why that felt so bad.
Right. And the thing that I've noticed time and time again is when you can have a conversation, not a one-sided, this is what this is, but more of an open conversation where both people feel like they are able to communicate what it is that they're feeling or what perspective they're coming from, more times than not, you are going to get a much better outcome and a more effective dynamic, whether that's a work dynamic, a partnership, whatever, right? So if you're coming into this work conversation example, right, and the supervisor is saying, I'm really like wanting to talk through the situation that happened, and I also want to hear your perspective on this, or I'm open to hearing the feedback that you have for me. And this is one of the things that I feel like is very important, even within therapy, and something that I try to set the tone with a lot of clients with is I'm always open to feedback. As the therapist, I want to hear what is working, what's not working. If there are moments that you're feeling disconnected or you're feeling, confused about something that I said, I want you to come to me with that feedback. And so I think it kind of disarms some of the either power differential or allows people to have that permission to also have their voices heard and feel like that is something that's encouraged and respected.
Absolutely. And I would even branch up like even in relationships. Like when you leave space open for both people to be heard, and again, an example I gave of like doing all this work and ignoring me every time I come in the room.
That was our example.
And the example I put out there, plenty of other examples, but I think it's knowing that both people are allowed to have a perspective. And yes, I'm with you of like, we all want to leave that conversation feeling heard.
Right.
Of like, this person really heard me. They might have their own perspective. That's fine. That's great. But do I feel like they heard me and that we're both holding each other's truth here, even when there's not an easy resolution? And I think that in hearing human conflict all day, every day for a living, I rarely feel like there's an easy solution. I feel like the nuance of what we're talking about in communication, yeah, there's usually, a lot of things that I'd like to steer and offer, but I agree with you as a therapist, especially doing interpersonal process. You can't do that work if you're not open to it.
Right.
And sometimes it takes reflection. You got to think like between sessions, especially, when something's not quite clicking or a client's like not feeling like they're progressing in the way that they want. But you have to be open to that nuance of how is this working for you? Are you getting what you need from these sessions?
Mm-hmm.
Because you definitely can't assume.
Totally. One of the other pieces that it kind of makes me think about too, even from conversations that I have with clients, is I guess this isn't quite a mistake, but more of a suggestion in terms of communication, replacing but with and.
Yeah, what do you think that does?
I think, again, it takes away the defensiveness and invalidation piece a lot of times for people. So to give an example, let's say somebody is coming to you and they are, sharing their feelings about something that you don't agree with. You can say, yes, I hear what you're saying, but blah, blah, blah. That feels very different than saying, yes, I hear what you're saying, and I also feel like here's my different perspective. There's two very different feelings that come from that conversation, right? Of like, when you're saying but, the immediate feeling is defensiveness.
Immediate, yeah. And it goes back to a point you made before and was on my list of like not trying to win the conversation. Butts feel like you're trying to win.
Yeah.
It feels like, and I'm getting this touchdown after you, where it's like, if you go into it and the only goal is to understand each other better, it's the only goal. It's not who messed up the most, who's right, who's wrong.
Right.
Because in any scenario, there is going to be two perspectives. And that's the hardest part of like, a lot of times in this society, I get it. We try to play of like, who's more deserving of the compassion. And I fall into that too. Like I see stuff, on social media and it's
Sure.
easy to have compassion for one and harder for the other. I get it. But in general, in your real life, you need to go in with the understanding of like this, there's no judge, jury, or executioner here. You're on the same damn team. And the only goal should be, do I understand my partner better as a result of this conversation?
Yeah. Well, and again, I think it opens the conversation from me versus you to there might be other perspectives, and it doesn't mean that either one of them is wrong.
Right. And I think that's the interesting nuance of, human behavior. You get into ethics, you get into morality, but in relationships, especially, and again, friendships, I think a lot of times we're going in with this jury in our head of like, oh, people would agree with me. You already lost.
Yeah.
You already lost if that's the mindset. It'd be like, as a result of this, can I understand my friend better? Can we be closer because of this? Because one thing I probably say it too much, but like part of being human is you are going to hurt others. Of course, how intentionally you do that is degrees, but unintentionally all the time. All the time it happens. And I think technology maybe is to blame a little bit with this and feeling like people are replaceable and you're one swipe away from getting a new person in your life. But I think that's an unfortunate consequence because if you accept that part of having any sort of relationship is that there's going to be hurt involved, you don't label this as this is bad, I'm out.
Right.
You label it as this is normal. Again, to a degree, protect yourselves physically, emotionally.
Right.
There's extremes here, but in general, it's sort of understanding that it's not saying that this is bad. It's saying, how are we going to connect and do this together?
Right. And I think even having that frame or that expectation that if you're in a relationship with someone, a friendship, a partner, whoever, for long enough, it's inevitable that there is going to be hurt for both of you at a certain point, right? And it might not be an intentional, hurt or again, there are degrees and levels to everything. But when you go in with this expectation that we're both human and this is going to happen from time to time, it makes it feel less bad, right?
Yeah.
Of like, this is okay. It doesn't mean that we're broken as a unit. It means that we're human and we're going to have disagreements or we're going to have conflicts or we're going to be hurt by each other, but that we're able to then move forward and we're able to repair and have those conversations to then bring us back together.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the important part. Can you repair? And even that, can take practice and work. Like,
Sure.
if you have the expectation of the first fight I get into with my partner, if we don't repair quickly and easily, I'm like, you're going to learn something even in that of like all the nuance we're talking about. And, some people will want to back away and not share. And maybe some people will flood and
Yeah.
not quite be digestible. What else was on the list?
Let's see. It's interesting. One of the things that you were saying was making me think of, I don't know if I saw it on like a post somewhere, but they said if you win an argument with your partner, you both lost.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
if
so true,
one
though.
of you is winning, whether it's you or the other person, you both lost.
Yeah, the whole foundation of what it is you're doing is a huge L.
Yes.
You're doing life together. No. Yeah, and I get it. It's not like I'm like, I can't believe somebody would feel that way. But if you're feeling that way, we got to get back. We got to get back to the foundation of how you think about this relationship and the two of you doing this.
Right. We talked about a lot of these. Let's see. Over-explaining or getting defensive, which we've kind of talked about the other side of that, right? Things that make someone potentially more defensive. But from the lens of the person who can be defensive or on the defensive side, I think that's also another thing that we can kind of hold some space for and take a step back in those moments. And when we catch ourselves being defensive or trying to over-explain our side of things or our perspective, recognizing that for what it is and kind of what we're trying to get across, and being able to kind of pause in that moment and maybe reflect on what it is that we're trying to say or what it is that we're wanting that person to hear.
And you're saying from the part of the person that is getting
defensive.
Yeah, in there too, I feel like there's grace. Like, if you can give yourself the grace that you're going to make mistakes, you don't got to get defensive.
Yeah.
And you don't have to use sorry as sort of a shield not to absorb it. But I think mixing it in of like, I can really understand because you did tell me last year that it means a lot for you, for me to plan like a little surprise. And yeah, I dropped the ball this year and I'm sorry for that. Like, you just don't have to. I don't know how else to explain it. Of like, because of perfectionism, because of people feeling like if I have any flaws, they're going to be used against me. It's a two-way street. Because if I'm willing to absorb that and say, you know what, I did mess up, I'm sorry for that. Then it goes back to you of, are you going to model the grace? Or do you compound and like pile on, because that's not healthy either. Of like, if you feel heard, your partner can't undo what's been done.
Right.
There is the sort of move forward now. But it's so interesting as like the dynamic feeds itself. But if you can start, if you're the one, receiving the feedback, if you can just absorb it and really understand, I'm like, yeah, I can see why that would be hurtful for you.
Yeah. And even catching yourself in moments being defensive and just naming it out loud, right? Of, I'm feeling defensive in this moment, or I am feeling this way. and I need to like either take a pause or I need to just kind of take a step back or redirect for a second, also tends to allow you a little bit more grace, both for yourself and from the other person.
Absolutely. In the speed run of things, I think we named so many things that I had on this list of, being vague and indirect. This is, I mean, that gets into the use of like, oh, you're going out again, huh?
Yeah, the
I guess
passive
the
aggressiveness.
passive aggressive of like, you're going out again. You're always hanging out with that friend. It's just like, get to the core.
Yeah.
Like, let's
What
not.
is it that you're actually feeling?
What are you actually feeling? Because the feeling there might be like, hey, I would love for us to have some quality time together. I'm feeling, a little left out, and I want us to spend time. But people will be like, "Oh, you're hanging out with your friends again." Being emotionless, we talked about. Just like not naming at all what it is you're feeling.
I think that one also is important too, because we can tend to be cognitive and get stuck on details and kind of project in that way, right? As opposed to being able to name, like, I'm feeling hurt in this moment, because that feels a little bit more vulnerable, as opposed to this is the details of the conversation, or this is, what happened, or the
Going through the
situation.
narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that isn't naming any emotions that are involved.
The only one I have left that we didn't talk about was having the conversation too soon, sacrificing sleep, and I put in all caps, go to bed. I don't know whoever came up with the saying, don't go to sleep angry or don't go to sleep in the middle of a fight. That's trash advice. I will argue this is a hill I'm willing to die on. You have to agree at some point to stop.
Yeah.
And say, it's late, both tired, we'll talk again in the morning. But the idea that you're going to solve it when you're both sleep deprived, it's getting late, again, I don't know who created that saying or advice. I think it's trash. But the thing I'll say to that advice's credit, you both have to agree and say, hey, we can understand the more dysregulated we get, and we're both tired, nothing good is going to come from us talking about this.
Right.
But I think there's a piece in us connecting over that of like, yeah, it's 2 a.m. It's late as hell.
Right.
We're both upset. Let's prioritize sleep and we'll talk about it at breakfast.
Right. And being able to say, we will talk about this another time, and this is the time, and not just using that to sweep things under the rug and say, okay, well, I'm not dealing with this, period, and shutting down the conversation. There's a very big difference between being able to say, okay, we might both be overwhelmed or dysregulated in this moment. Let's sleep on it. Let's, come back to this when we're both in a more, normal time, normal headspace versus exhausted and overwhelmed.
Yeah. Oh my God. The one thing I'll say is this. Everything on this list, I've done every single one of them. If we were playing bingo, I would have bingoed long ago in this conversation.
I mean, clearly, I probably would have bingoed first based off of
maybe in current
our history. But yeah, I think also there are so many things that being in a healthy relationship or having healthy friendships or supports can very much help you grow in these areas. And communication doesn't just come down to having the quote unquote right words to say or the right thing that you're trying to, navigate, or an outcome that you're trying to get to. A lot of times it's experimenting and being able to show up in the vulnerable moments and be able to share parts of yourself with someone else and have that be respected and appreciated by them, even in the hard moments.
It's so true. You won't know until you put yourself out there. You're allowed to find out, and we're all going to do this imperfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's why we were able to create this list. You know, we've lived it. We observe it, sure, as therapists, but we also every one of these on the list. I can think of times where I'm like, I definitely did that.
For sure. And I think there's also an aspect that we didn't fully dive into, but again, having space to have conversations in person a lot of times, as opposed to things getting lost in text or not having nonverbals and tone understood, can also obviously be a whole other episode in and of itself, just between like texting conversations or things along those lines. But being able to have those conversations in person and have those nuances right in front of you is a huge aspect.
I'm glad you put that at the end here, because if it's important enough, it deserves in-person energy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's too much open to interpretation with text, way too much. Even on the phone, better than text.
Sure.
But it's still not the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same as being in the same room as somebody and being able to like hold that space. Because it is important. Everyone's perspective is important. Oh, we hope you took something away from this conversation. We all got more work to do. And we're all trying our best out here. Hey, we love a review. Send this in the group chat. Maybe at someone in the group chat and be like, you need that. No, don't.
Exact.
I feel like you may benefit from. Y'all, thanks always for hanging out with us right here on Drop In. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Peace.